male named Tom Massari at a public channeling event. I went to listen for a while, and I thought the information was very interesting, and I thought it was very helpful information that seemed to have the ability to help people make positive changes in their lives. And eventually, the entity actually offered to teach a channeling class, and I thought, well, how is that possible? I thought channeling was something that just happened to someone. I didn't think it was something you could teach or learn. I went into the class not because I thought I was going to become a channel, but just because I wanted to further my research. However, during one of the guided meditations in the class, I experienced what I can only call a telepathic contact from Bashar and his people, and in that one instant, a memory actually came back of having made an agreement before this life with Bashar to do this channeling with him. I understood in that instant that the UFO had been shown to me by him on purpose to get me to start learning, start questioning, start finding out what was going on, and it led me to learn about channeling so that when the time came to fulfill the agreement I had made to channel Bashar, I would be ready. I'd have enough information so that I wouldn't be scared. I would know how to move forward. I would understand that channeling was beneficial to people. So I, thought, well, first, I don't know, am I hallucinating? I mean, is this a side effect of the meditation? Is this real? Is it my imagination? But in that one instant, this was going on in my head. I wasn't telling anyone. The entity coming through the teacher stopped talking to the class and turned right to me and said, there is an entity here for you right now if you're ready to begin. That was startling. And even more startling, I glanced over and I saw that one of the other classmates somehow had picked up on the image of Bashar I saw in my head, and she was actually sketching it on a piece of paper. And I realized, okay, this is not just my imagination. There's two outside validations here that something real is happening. The question that remained, though, was Bashar really a separate entity? Or was I just tapping into another aspect of my own consciousness? Either way, I realized that if I pursued the channeling, I would be exploring uncharted waters. Along with the events in the class, the UFO sighting suggested that Bashar might truly be an independent entity. But mainstream society and the media usually ridicule people who report UFOs. What would they say if I said that an alien was speaking through me? At the end of the class, I was approached by a woman named Margot Chandley, and she was writing a doctoral thesis on the connection between channeling and psychology, and I became one of the subjects that she studied for her paper. So she would invite me to her house, and she would invite friends over, and I would channel for them while she took notes in order to write her thesis. Well, the first week there were 5 friends. And then the next week there were 10 friends, and word of mouth started to spread that this was going on. And then there were 20 friends and 30 friends. And before we knew it, I had to start channeling twice a week to accommodate everyone. And eventually we had to start holding public events in order to handle the crowds. And word of mouth kept spreading. So eventually I found myself channeling in cities all over the world. And so really my public channeling career started in 1984 with Margot. Did I choose this path from a higher level of existence before I entered this life, as Bashar has proposed? When I think about it, there were hints and signs. Most were subtle, but one in particular stands out. When I was little, we lived in this old West Hollywood apartment building. One day, Dad was at work, Mom was in the kitchen, and I was playing by myself in the living room. Suddenly, this small, swirling whirlpool of light appeared and floated in front of me in midair. It just hung there. I remember being transfixed and feeling like it was some kind of window to somewhere else. I didn't actually hear a voice, but it felt like someone was sending me a message from the other side of the light. Looking back now, I wonder if that moment is where my journey really began.
When Darryl first made his connection to Bashar and started to channel, it was a little challenging for him because of Bashar's intense energy. And as I watched Darryl work to get out of the way to let Bashar's energy come through, I realized that it was just Bashar's passion and excitement in bringing through the ideas that he wanted to share. But most of all, I loved his humor.
I'm a member of SETI, Do you know SETI?
Yes, we understand.
Search for extra.
Here I am. Search over.
What do you think is funny about us?
What isn't?
I'm such a dreamer.
What does that mean?
I dream of meeting my true love.
You dream of meeting your true love. Look in a mirror.
This question's a bit eccentric, but I was wondering,
Bit eccentric?
Yes.
Because talking to an alien through a human is not eccentric enough.
Do you have films in your reality?
No, we just come watch you.
Okay. Perfect.
Before I started working with Bashar, I had a very traditional work life. I had careers in banking and finance, as a university professor, and also as a psychological counselor. In 1985, as part of my exploration of psychology, I happened upon a lecture being given by Bashar at an expo. Upon hearing him speak, I was so amazed at the clarity and the cutting-edge nature of the psychological information he was providing. From that point forward, my life moved in the direction of bringing together all of my business experience, all of my teaching experience, and all of my counseling experience into one form of work that incorporated everything that I had learned. I became so passionate about sharing Bashar's information as a way of helping to improve the lives of both the people and the animals on our planet.
While it's possible for a channel to filter or color a telepathic message, I think the most important thing is to focus on the message rather than the messenger. Is the information empowering or is it controlling? Is it love-based or fear-based? Is it integrative or disconnecting? Is it positive or negative? I feel that the bottom line is use the information that works for you, that speaks to your heart, and just leave the rest behind. The channeling class taught me to alter my brain waves to match Bashar's frequency. He does the same thing on his ship, and somewhere in the middle, our vibrations meet and harmonize. When they do, my body becomes like a biological resonator, and my personality starts to mirror his.
That's an EEG cap, and it's going to be recording your brain waves as we measure various states that we'll be exploring today. And looking up here, we can see that each of the electrodes that we have hooked up on that cap have achieved a level of impedance that is accurate and that will properly record the brainwaves without interference.
In the beginning of the channeling, the channel was capable of holding on to, shall we say, or bringing through the idea of about 1.5 to 2% of our energy. In the ensuing years following the initiation of contact with the channel, it was thus then capable in the channel's body of expressing our energy up to about 3%. On average now, we are expressing about 5% of our total energy.
So we're looking at a picture of Darryl's baseline EEG. And what I've done is to record Darryl's baseline when he is not channeling and compare that to his EEG when he is channeling. Now here is a picture of Darryl's raw EEG, baseline again, in which we see a very rounded and rhythmic, dominant frequency, we call it, in the posterior cortex, or the back of the head. And this is a good finding, it's a positive finding, because it tells us that Darryl's nervous system is stable, and also that he has what we call good thalamocortical functioning. And this is a common feature, a characteristic that is found in individuals who are peak performers. So here we have a picture of what disconnects when Darryl begins to channel. And you can see the areas in blue, the functional Brodmann areas we call them, that are not used when he is channeling. And it appears that he disconnects from his personal sense of self. He disconnects from the experience of pain. Now, what increases when he begins to channel is, first of all, his processing speed. And processing speed is a very interesting phenomenon because what happens is it develops early in childhood. And by about the age of 5 or 6, and certainly 9 or 10 maximum, we reach a set point. And this set point doesn't usually change during the lifetime. And in Darryl's case, it actually went up when he began to channel. And it increased when he listened. The actual frequency of the processing speed was tuned to an exact frequency all over the brain. Now we're looking at Darryl's anterior cingulate while he's channeling. And you can see the red areas there. There is actually gamma frequencies that I found in his anterior cingulate. And gamma frequencies relate to the higher mind. And gamma frequencies are often found in Tibetan monks and people who meditate a lot. To summarize sort of what I found here in Darryl's brain in comparison with the channeling state, he starts from a very stable resting state. And then he experiences changes that statistically less than 1% of the population would experience in the same way. He increases his processing speed. He tunes it exquisitely to one frequency all over the brain. And then he's able to create a resonant holding environment for the peak performance or the channeling to happen. He pumps energy into the right frontal cortex and the right auditory cortex so that he can empathize and hear very, very clearly. And because of the gamma frequencies in the anterior cingulate, he can shift gears. He'll be able to shift gears and navigate cognition, thoughts, and emotions very, very flexibly. And he'll be able to interpret from a higher perspective, from a more evolved place in his mind, much like from the highest mountaintop.